A woman spends 2 years plotting the flawless murder and gets caught by a single, accidental cough. Her plan was intricate, her alibi airtight, her motives buried so deep even her closest friends suspected nothing. But beneath every so-called genius crime, there's a mistake waiting to happen, one the criminal never sees coming. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The smarter the criminal thinks they are, the more likely they'll trip over their own psychology. So why do even the most calculating murderers always slip up? Today we dig into the real psychological traps that sabotage the so-called perfect crime, and what this reveals about how all of us overrate our ability to outsmart the world. But first, picture this. A dim, windowless room, a detective slides a tape recorder across the table. Across from him, the suspect sits straight-backed, rehearsed, unfazed, until the detective asks about the red scarf. Her eyes flick, just for a split second, to a corner of the room. That micro-movement is all it takes. The perfect murder, undone by a 2mm glance. But here's the twist. She didn't even notice she gave herself away. That's not bad luck. It's a flaw wired into all of us. Call it the illusion of control. The more we practice, the more we believe we're immune to mistakes. But the brain is a master at betraying itself under pressure. Let's break down the 3 biggest mental traps that doom even the best-laid criminal plans. First, overconfidence. The most dangerous criminal isn't the most ruthless. It's the one who believes they can't be caught. Real-world example. Dennis Rader, the BTK killer, taunted police for years. He believed he could outwit everyone, until he sent a floppy disk that led police straight to his door. What's wild is, he asked detectives if the disk could be traced. They lied. He believed them. Overconfidence blinds even the sharpest minds to their own blind spots. And it's not limited to criminals. Think of the CEO who thinks their company is too big to fail, or the student who skips studying because they always ace the test. But the stakes are higher when you're betting your freedom. Second trap, stress. Even the most rehearsed plan unravels under real pressure. In a lab experiment, students told to lie under pressure made 50% more micro-expressions than truth-tellers. Our bodies betray us. Heart rate spikes, pupils dilate, voices tremble without us realizing. Every detective knows the mouth lies, but the body leaks the truth. It's why trained interrogators ask about details they already know are false, just to watch you squirm. But here's the kicker. Stress doesn't just expose the lie, it creates new mistakes. Under stress, memory falters. Even simple details, the color of a car, the day of the week, get scrambled. That's why so many confessions collapse under cross-examination. The story slicks. Now, the third trap, the unexpected. No matter how much you plan, you can't account for the random jogger, the nosy neighbor, or the security camera newly installed. The perfect crime is only perfect until the world refuses to cooperate. Even the Zodiac killer, never caught, left behind spelling mistakes and cryptic clues that are still being pored over. Why? Because the human brain is amazing at pattern recognition, but terrible at randomness. We can't simulate chaos, so we always miss something. And the more we try to control, the more things slip between our fingers. But here's the psychological twist. Most criminals don't see themselves as villains. Self-justification is a powerful drug. But this also clouds judgment. You stop seeing your own errors. In fact, most people, even outside crime, ignore evidence that contradicts what they want to believe. It's the same psychology that keeps investors clinging to doomed stocks, or lovers ignoring red flags. Now, let's circle back to our woman in the interrogation room. She's convinced her story is airtight. She's rehearsed every answer. But the detective notices her hand twitch when he mentions the neighbor's dog. It's a classic stress response, one she's completely unaware of. And as the detective follows that thread, her story starts to unravel. He brings up the cough, the detail she forgot, the sound she made outside the victim's door. She stares, stunned. That moment, barely a second, was enough to destroy 2 years of planning. What's really at play here isn't a lack of intelligence, it's the limits of human cognition. You can memorize every detail, but you can't control your nervous system or the random chaos of the world. Which raises a question. If even the most calculating criminals can't pull off a perfect crime, what hope do the rest of us have at avoiding mistakes? Most of us won't find ourselves in an interrogation room, but we all think we're immune to our own blind spots. We all stress test our plans, vacations, interviews, relationships, only to be blindsided by the unexpected. Here's the punchline. The myth of the perfect crime isn't just about murderers and detectives. It's about everyone who believes they're too clever to fail. So, how do you avoid your own cognitive traps? First, assume you're missing something, because you almost certainly are. Second, stress test your plans, but expect them to break. And finally, remember, the world is more random than you think. Even the best criminal minds are undone by ordinary psychology. So the next time you hear about a perfect crime, remember, what seems genius in hindsight is usually just lucky not to be caught, yet. Click for our deep dive on interrogation tactics and the science of reading minds. In reality, most criminals aren't caught by one dramatic slip, but by 1,000 tiny inconsistencies. A 2012 study of solved homicide cases found investigators rarely spot a single smoking gun. Instead, they build a case from dozens of micro-mistakes. That's the trick professional interrogators use, not to catch the big lie, but to spot the small leaks. Here's a twist. Some of history's most notorious unsolved crimes were probably undone by micro-mistakes we just haven't seen yet. And sometimes, those tiny details stay hidden for decades, only to unravel everything with one new discovery. Technology's making the world even less friendly to the would-be perfect criminal. Which means human error is the one constant, whether you're in a bank vault or behind a screen. So the perfect crime? It's not just foiled by what you do, but by what you can't help but feel. Because in the end, the world is always more complicated, more random, and more surprising than any of us would like to believe. So do you still think you could pull off the perfect crime? Or are you noticing right now your own blind spots, ones you never saw before? Maybe that's the greatest trick of all. The story isn't about criminals, it's about us. And the next time you hear about someone who thought they were too smart to get caught, you'll know the only perfect crime is the one that never gets attempted.